Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We were all meant to shine as children do. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others.
Welcome to Successful Dropout. This podcast is for the outliers, the innovators, the rebels, those that dare to dream and act on their dreams. I'm your host, Kylan Ginger. Join me as we find out what it takes to drop out, grind, and succeed. What is up, Successful Dropouts? Get stoked because today on the show we have Chino Lex. Chino is a serial entrepreneur and mobile growth consultant. At 18, he dropped out of University of Washington to start an app company called Select Apps. By night, he built the company while working as a carpet cleaner by day. With zero marketing spent and zero outside capital, the company published over 160 iOS apps and 30 Android apps with users across 155 countries worldwide. Dang. Gets better too. His world-class knowledge in App Store optimization, better known as ASO, has resulted in a top 1% ASO track record. Over 50 of his apps have hit Apple's top charts, totaling about 5 million users. The app portfolio was acquired in 2016. Congratulations. And he's appeared in social media publications like Yahoo Finance, Forbes, Inc. magazine, and the Huffington Post. So, Chino, that is quite the intro. But tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you do.
Thanks, man. So good to be here. I am, a serial entrepreneur. By definition, I don't really like to say it, but I guess that's where it fits. That's where the glove fits. I start things that come into my head and hopefully make them into companies. And that takes form in the shape of apps. And on the side, I also do consulting for companies who need app growth.
And right now you're working on, so your first company, what was it called? Select Apps was acquired just recently. Yeah.
So it was like the beginning of 2016. So almost a year now. Yeah.
And so now what your new project is it called Tap Tracks? Was that it?
That was the latest, but I've since shifted focus away from that. It turns out the music business isn't the best business to be in, but now I'm focusing on a company called AppMonk, which will pretty much take the best practices of all the stuff I know in ASO and put it into a product so people can get more users to their apps organically.
Okay. So Tap Tracks, really quick, what? Because I was looking up, a little bit about it. It was like a kind of a music discovery app. Explain to me kind of, why you discovered that wasn't working, and a little bit about what it was. It sounded pretty cool.
Tap Tracks was pretty much Pandora on steroids. So you type in a song, and you get song suggestions in 6-second clips that you can like or pass, and like the liked songs would become fully streamable in your playlist as you discover. And we got to about 150,000 registered users, which is about the same as like Beats Music got before they got sold to Apple, but there just really wasn't like a viable business model around that, because in music you need like giant scale, and even though 150,000 users sounds like a lot, it's not a lot compared to Spotify or SoundCloud or Pandora, right? And then you need deals with the music labels, which I had no, action for, or really. I didn't really want to deal with all the BS of the music business. I just wanted to make a cool product that I would use and that I think people would find value from. But unfortunately, the nuances of that space kind of got the best of the business. And it was a struggle to raise capital, because historically, even the best companies like Spotify, even Apple and SoundCloud, none of them are profitable off music, because 70% of all their money has to go back to the regulars, and that was kind of a harsh reality I had to face early on. And it gave me the foresight to say, okay, maybe this isn't the best path for me professionally as well as people working with me.
Yeah. Now, for something like that, and I know I'm kind of dwelling on something that you're no longer doing, but I think that honestly, like I looked at kind of what you had going on. I really wouldn't consider it a failure, but it was definitely seemed like a learning experience, and that seems to be where so much value is. I'm wondering, like, all those kind of issues and stuff, were those possible to foresee, or did you foresee any of those before you started working on it, or did you just know, like, I want to start working on this, and you just dove in and kind of discovered those along the way?
Kind of a little bit of all of what you're saying, but in the different order. So the idea came intrinsically, which made me fall in love with it, which probably wouldn't, in retrospect, wouldn't be like the best thing to do, to fall in love with the idea. But so I saw that in Foresight, but it was mitigated through the growth that we had. We had really good initial traction, but it wasn't like hockey stick growth, as they say, in the coming months. So it wasn't enough for me to go on and to like really say, okay, the risks that I saw before are really we can overlook those because of the growth, because the growth didn't catch up and it didn't excel anymore exponentially. Gotcha. Yeah.
Okay. Now, so explain to me, I'm curious, how are you able to, for an app like that, to get 150,000 users without any marketing? You built, sounds like over 190 apps without any marketing or outside funding. How do you do that?
So typically, I guess, which part of it? Like the growth part of it, like the making the app.
Like, I would just assume that to scale anything that big, you would need some sort of funding, some sort of seed money, and to actually market it. So, I mean, I guess just in general, how were you able to pull that off? It's fascinating.
Awesome. So I guess it's a belief that I have. So everything that we consume, it lives on a platform. So like all the photos that we consume, they're probably on Instagram. All the music that we consume is probably on Spotify or iTunes. And all the apps that we consume are on the App Store. So if you think about when we search, everything on every platform is stuck behind a search bar. So if you optimize for people, what people are already searching for relative to your product, then you don't need to market your thing. Like so. What I was really good at, and what our company was really good at, is optimizing for searches that people are already doing on the App Store. So whether it be like music discovery, some game guides that we did to stuff like that, it's really important to kind of set your locks up where the keys are already going, if that makes sense. So we didn't. I guess another way to look at it is when you discover, like, say, a website, it's not through like a billboard or through a newspaper. It's through where the website lives. It's Google. It's online, right? So that's why SEO is so important. In the same respect, like, I'm not, even if I discover an app from like a newspaper, the front page New York Times, that promotion won't give me any traffic. That's really good compared to people already searching for your kind of app on the App Store, right? Because the platform is different. So there's handing off the traffic from platform to platform gives you like no visibility, a very low conversion rate in terms of like getting those new users. So it's important to start with the platform that you're on and optimize for things that people are like already searching for.
Fascinating. Okay, so to break that down, basically, you would find a platform like the
App Store,
the App Store, and just look where people were directing their attention. Look for what people were typing in, and create something and put it in their way. Essentially, instead of creating something and trying to draw people, to it. You just
I mean, that's
right in front of them.
That's the more business practical approach to it. I mean, my first app is a fake product finder, and like I thought it'd change the world. It was like pretty much a catalog of like fake Jordans, fake Ray-Bans, fake Louis Vuitton stuff. So you can decipher whether or not what you were buying on eBay or Craigslist per se was real. And there was no market.
Interesting.
For that. Yeah, there was no market for that, and so I switched up the approach where I'm like, okay, well, all my apps will live on the App Store. Like, let's think about something that people are already searching for and make a product around that search.
That's funny, because I actually, I'll tell a little side story just because it's kind of relatable and funny, but I won't mention his name, but one of my really good friends was looking for a G-Shock watch, and he got this app where he's just finding all these incredible products and incredible brand names for super, super cheap. and he found, this G-Shock watch, and it was like $15, and he's like, score. And it even had kind of the G-Shock picture and stuff, so he told me, and he ordered it, and it looks exactly the same, functions exactly the same, but it says S-Shock.
Yeah. That's that Chinese brand. It's a huge epidemic in China where they'll take like brands like Jordan and New Balance and XYZ, even fake iPods, and they'll make duplicates and send them to the U.S. and people just sell them for cheap. But I think that's a felony now. But anyway, yeah, that was the first year that didn't do so well.
That's just fascinating. I think Tim Ferriss talks about how Nike can create a new product or something like that, and manufacturers in China, at least a few of them, they can make the exact same thing. They just don't have the branding. That's nuts. Okay, so Chino, tell me about your dropout story. What kind of led to that decision, and what's the story there?
Oh, wow. Okay, so half of it, I wrote about this in my blog post on my Medium. It's just my story on my Medium page. But anyway, it was half rational and half intrinsic. So intrinsic in the sense that I knew I didn't really want to go to college, and I wasn't that serious about it because I always had things running in the background that were never related to college. So it's not like I thought about my major, I thought about my housing, my books, any of that stuff when I got in. So I guess the story goes, I got into college and I deferred admission because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I didn't want to waste money in educational ambiguity. So I deferred admission to the winter quarter instead of the fall. And so when winter came around, I was on the way to college. My little Saab 9.3, it's a little car, and it was blue. It was a German car, had big wheels, and I was driving through the snow on the way. You might know this from Spokane to Seattle, and through the pass, I slid my car into the one in front of me because it was snowing, and just totaled my car. This was on the way to orientation, so I was really rattled. So I guess that kind of seems like luck, but it really didn't feel good to have that. I mean it was like a sign to me or something, like I shouldn't do this. But that was the irrational intrinsic part. But so I got to college, did orientation, and just looked around, and everyone looked kind of lost, but they also looked like they just needed to be told what to do. Come this way in this room, sit in this room for an hour, listen to this. This is what you're gonna do. And I knew what I wanted to do. I just wanted to make stuff. And that was another intrinsic part. And the other rational part would be the other rational parts would be I did Running Start, which is this program that lets you take college classes in high school. Good deal. And so I was about a year and a half or under 2 years ahead of my peers, ahead of people in my grade in terms of college credit. So that was under my belt. I just had ideas. I mean, that always in my notepad, in my Microsoft Word document of just things I wanted to do. And so that combination of factors was okay, you don't have to go to college because worst case scenario, go back and still come back ahead of your peers. And I just knew the market would be different if I set on these ideas until after college. So after orientation, all those factors played in: the car crash, the ideas I had, and that was burning in my belly. The thought that I had more than I needed to in terms of college credit at that time. That was the okay for me in my head. And so I called the financial aid office the morning after orientation, and said, "Hey, I don't need that loan anymore. I'm not going to school." And so they reversed the loan, and I was on my way to starting the app company. So that's kind of how it came into fruition, and it all just happened in a matter of 3 days or whatever.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when you say ideas, were you talking about ideas for apps? I mean, is that something you were always interested, or were you thinking of starting maybe other businesses or ventures or anything like that?
Well, I always knew I wanted to. Let's see. There was just a bunch of ideas. I have ideas from online products to offline products to everything, food ideas, everything. And it's just in this file, this massive, giant hairy file of things that could be businesses or things I want to see in the world. And I guess it all started when I was younger, because I mowed the lawns, I shoveled the driveways, I sold the stuff on eBay, and I'd go to yard sales and then sell stuff on eBay. So I always knew I wanted to start a business, and I never really internalized that it was called entrepreneurship or being an entrepreneur. I just thought it was
Just
how
wanted to
things
build
work.
things.
Yeah, I just wanted to package things and build things and give them to people, maybe get money for it, and it was really natural, I guess.
Do you have any of those ideas that you've just decided are terrible, so you can share them out of curiosity?
Yeah, well, this is kind of funny, but someone will probably do this. I don't care because I probably would never do this. But back when I was 16, I just realized that when people in high school talked about getting high or whatever, they always get the munchies. I'm like, well, why don't you just make weed burgers? And now it's legal, so it's someone could totally take that in Washington and make that a business, or license that to McDonald's or whatever, take that for free. But that was one of those the ideas I knew I'd never do, and so that's halfway stupid, I guess. But what's another one? For people who want to ride their bikes in the snow, they'd have a mini snow plow in front of their tires so they get more traction on the tires. Yeah, there are a ton of them, man.
I like that.
Yeah, or another one was on a saw. If you can't cut it exact, it has sandpaper on the circle part of it, so you can kind of shave down the last little increment of your piece of wood.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, there's a ton of them, man. I mean, this all started when I was 12.
I love it, man. Yeah, that last one, I work in the construction industry, or did. I had a company, and that would have been helpful. A couple of different places. One of my ideas that I don't think somebody can take this one too was a Halloween costume swapping website. I just thought it would always be a cool idea, but monetizing it and growing it, I always thought would be pretty difficult. But man, we get together with our friends. We have a Halloween party every year, and it's every year it was such a pain to go out and try to find a new costume. And I'm pretty frugal with my resources, and so spending money for something I was going to use once was oh man. But then all my friends had all these cool costumes they wore years before, so we'd swap and
yeah,
I don't know. But that what I love about that is just the practice of it. It sounds like you were really good about writing things down. And for anybody listening, that stuff, you think you have a brilliant idea or something and you think, oh, I'll remember that, I'll come back to it later. And that doesn't always work out. And so I use Evernote, and I just have a couple different, notebooks, and one is specifically just business ideas. And I've probably kept it since I was 12. I mean, I'm looking, there's just pages and pages, and probably 90% of them are what the heck was I thinking? I remember, wow, what's that one? There's that movie with Angelina Jolie, and it's the one where the bullets can curve.
Yeah,
you know what I'm talking about?
They
shoot, they swing their arm around and I was like, man, what if you actually created a bullet that once it was shot, like a wing or something would pop out of it and actually cause it to move in different directions instead of a straight trajectory. And it's those ideas now. It's well, come watch next year somebody. But
yeah, I'm a crazy person. It's the only reason I wrote these things down is because it burn a hole in my brain if I didn't. I have song lyrics, I have movie ideas, I have business ideas, product ideas, all that stuff. If I have to keep it in my brain, I'll probably fry myself out or circuit my brain if that's even possible. But putting it onto paper is kind of like a pressure release valve for me.
Yeah, love that. So tell me how your parents reacted then to your decision to drop out.
They were surprisingly calm as first generation Americans who immigrated to the country.
Wow.
The narrative of, they immigrated to the country, they want better education, better opportunities for us. And that's all true. But I thought they'd freak out, but they only freaked out once. And that was because all of my developers were in India or China or Russia or something. And so I'd stay up till 4 a.m. and spin till I don't know, 2 or whatever it is. And they kept, I think they thought I was just on the internet fooling around for a little bit. So all night, every night. So one day I was on the couch and my dad woke me up. He's like, what are you doing? All you do is sleep till half the day is over and then stay up on your computer all night. I'm like, Dad, this is work. But besides that, they didn't take it negatively. I think they kind of knew like I was always, I wouldn't say special, but just different. My dad calls me an alien. He's like, Chino, you're an alien. You've always been an alien. Like, I've always done things differently. I've always asked why. I've always been the curious type, and that led me to, I guess, starting the app company. So, and a few months after I got my first, I guess, materialistic thing, which was a Beamer, and then they're like, okay, maybe he's not doing so bad, and like that was when they kind of quit asking me, are you going back to school? Is this like a permanent thing? And but then it got really hard, but I don't need it. But yeah, it was more. I think they were just more worried about me than like angry at me or any other emotion. But once they saw like I was getting up on my feet, I was going to move out soon. Like it was an indicator to them, like, okay, he's got this. He's got this. But yeah, I mean, when I broke the news to him, they're really supportive, surprisingly supportive. Especially my dad. He's always knew I had ideas, and this is probably like the manifestation of how I've always been as a kid.
Yeah. Can you give me a kind of a brief overview of what, after you dropped out, what like the first 6 months looked like? I think you went into a little bit with how your dad reacted and stuff, but I just think that's, for people listening, if you are dropping out or thinking of leaving, that's a really important period, because now you're kind of out in the real world, and your idea, whatever it is you're going to build, you got to make it happen. So what was that like for you, just briefly? Yeah,
and the first 6 to 8 months were just hell. I mean, so it's a lot of time alone, right? Because you don't have any money to hire anybody, so you kind of have to take the resources that you had, which is what I had, was savings from like those eBay businesses and the driveways and the lawns. That was all saved, so I can invest it into like app development and stuff. But so the first 6 months, let's see, it was a lot of loneliness, like trying to figure out how to do all these things that you want to do.
Right.
What else? It was a lot of like head scratching and Googling and trial and error. And I guess to contextualize for everybody listening, it's, if you don't really drop out, you take a leave of absence, so you can always go back to school.
Absolutely.
And so for me, it was just a lot of figuring stuff out and just trying it fast. I think when you take too much time planning, it just kills the momentum of whatever you're working on. So there's this saying that I haven't delved much into, but it's ready, fire, aim, and you kind of just go for it, and then adjust and be improvisation along the way to, I guess, your goal.
Yeah, and I guess that's what I was trying to get at earlier in our conversation with Tap Tracks, is trying to understand kind of how you operated with that, because I know I tend to err on the other side, where I can overthink something and try to figure out all the bad things that are going to happen and plan for them now. And I think
that's not bad. Yeah.
It's not. It can be a weakness and a strength. Just like, I have a business partner, and he's much more, like you, the shoot or aim. Or what was it? What did you say?
It was ready, fire, aim. I don't usually say that, but it just kind of came.
Yeah, ready, fire, aim. No, I hadn't heard it before, but that's great. More like that. And honestly, like that works really well too. And it's been a kind of a balance between the two that's been great. I mean, you got to do some planning, but really, at some point, you just got to pull the trigger and control what you can, and think about what you can actually control, and the things that you can't control yet. Just don't worry about it. You'll come to that bridge when you come to it.
Yeah, and all we have is time too. I mean, forget money, forget everything else, but all we have is time. And so if you spend too much time planning or strategizing or analyzing your competitors or whatever it is, you'll never experience what you need to experience. If you can experience a lot in a condensed amount of time, I think you're in a better position. Because no matter how many resources you have of learning, you never feel it. Like an experience will teach you how to feel like a situation. Like I've had like apps that are making tons of money getting taken down by the App Store because it like infringed on someone else's rights. And like I probably knew that like subconsciously going in, but I just wanted to make guides that help people, and like feeling like, I guess, the pain of seeing this revenue stream being cut off, like without so much as an email, like that changes your perspective going forward, right? And so, yeah, so just experience a lot in a short amount of time is what I'd probably say is the most valuable.
Yeah, I mean, failures are really the stepping stones to success. And you were what, 18 at the time?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, guys, and I've said it lots before, and I'll say it again, is when you're in those, between like 18, 22, even 18 to 25, you're still young enough to make plenty of mistakes. And your goal, I would say, your mentality should be whatever you decide to start or build, like try to break it. Try to, if you're going to fail fast, basically. So then you can recover quicker and move on to the next thing quicker. Now, I'm just out of curiosity, how do you monetize something like that with the app development and stuff? I mean, I know people pay maybe $1 or $2 for an app. Is that really, is there other ways to monetize, or is that why you have to develop so many apps?
So it's, the ways that apps typically monetize, there are 3 ways, right? So there are paid app installs. It's pretty straightforward. Apple takes 30%, you take 70%. Free with ads, that's it. So you monetize eyes and ears pretty much. And or what's newer now is people sell data, which I don't have too much experience in because I think it's kind of a dark art. But yeah, those are pretty much the ways you make money with apps. How we did it was usually free with ads. Like we get a high volume of users, and then show them ads every time they played the game or every time they came back to the app or etc. And then and then secondary was the paid app installs. Gotcha.
Now, can you, and you don't have to if you're not comfortable, but I always like to ask, can you share any of those numbers, kind of what your revenue numbers and stuff were then?
Yeah, I like to just say 6 figures. It lets people kind of like have an imagination, but it was 6 figures. So I got my first big check about, I think, 8 months after I started the company. I was in LA on the beach. This is totally a cliche. And like I got this email from Apple saying like, this is your payout. I'm like, sweet, more food, more time to just hang out. So like for me, it was just a really good feeling that I went through all this shit in the beginning and now I'm like making more than I guess a doctor would at 18, 19.
Yeah. So was that 8 months after, like right after you dropped out then? I mean, did you start the company and kind of drop out simultaneously? Is that what you meant?
Yeah. I mean, let's see. I think I started the company like 2 or 3 months officially, like incorporated the company, but was still working. I guess officially incorporated the company like 2 months after I dropped out. But I was like working on the app, like I guess I don't know.
So was most of that money you received kind of after that 8 months, was that from maybe like a couple apps or like spread out over several that you developed by then? Yeah,
so a couple apps, and then like I reinvested that money back in the company for more apps, and then it became what it became, like just hundreds of apps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you probably can't share what it was your company was acquired for, can you?
No, no.
I gotta try. I gotta ask. People love hearing that stuff. So tell me the story of what you would consider to be your worst entrepreneurial moment to date.
Yeah, I can. I'm not sure if this is how high this is on anyone else's scale, but what felt the worst to me was it was a celebrity that was like Grammy nominated and had a ton of hit songs like 2008, 2009, 2000. He like killed it from 2006 to like 2010. But he was this artist who I met in LA and on the way to CES like about a year ago, and we just clicked. And then a couple months later, we had a meeting. I asked him to invest in Tap Tracks. Like the meeting went great. Like the relationship went great. A lot of rapport that I felt. And then he agreed to fund our seed round, which is about $500,000. And then like after a day went by, a week went by, 2 weeks went by, 3 weeks went by, just cricket, nothing. Like so going from, oh my God, this person I really look up to, who's a really relevant investor who could open a lot of doors for us, agreed to he looked me in the face and said that he's down to invest in our seed round. They went from that to, oh my God, we have no other backup investors. We have we need this money to keep going, and like it was like that was probably the worst, like the biggest roller coaster I've ever been on. It was straight ecstasy to straight almost like depression because a lot of things were riding on that money too, and it was just a huge morale booster for like the rest of the team, and I think that's probably the worst entrepreneurial moment. But like in retrospect, like it could have been worse, like it could have been way worse. Like we had 0 users, like the team didn't care about building a product. A lot of things can go wrong, but that was probably the worst that felt. That probably felt the worst to me personally. And on top of that, you have to hide that from your team in the sense that you can't show, you really can't show weakness to your team. And that sounds really cliche, but you can't, because that spreads, that permeates through the whole morale and like the whole, I guess cadence of positivity throughout the team. And so it kind of sucks because it's how you feel versus how you show, and you have to compartmentalize the two in the sense of business most of the time, especially as a founder.
Yeah. So when you say your team, do you have actual employees working for you, or are they still kind of virtual assistants or virtual programmers?
We had a team of 3.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So out of that experience, then what's kind of the lesson you took away from that moving forward?
Always have leverage with everything. Like, so for example, if I didn't do this, but for example, if I really wanted to get on your podcast, I'd have like 3 other podcasts lined up in my back pocket that I also wanted to get on. So if you say no, it's okay because I have 3 other podcasts. Make sense? So and I learned that from like the whole investor experience where, I was talking to one investor, focusing on my time and attention on the relationship with this one investor when I should have had 5 or 6 like lined up, right?
Yeah.
And that translates to everything, like hiring an employee. You really want this one guy, but there are 3 other guys equal to him, so it's okay if he says no. But that doesn't mean you half-ass the effort to get him. But having that, having those backups. Yeah. I wouldn't. Yeah. I think in like M&A they call it BATNA, best alternative something to an agreement, BATNA, or no. Anyway, but having a best alternative to whatever the transaction is.
Yeah. Love it. Yeah. And so how about now on the flip side, more of an aha moment you've experienced where, something happened and all of a sudden it just clicked and you started viewing things maybe a little different moving forward?
I wouldn't really say I had an aha. I mean, most of whatever I do is incremental and how it comes into fruition. Like it's an idea, and then I work on it a little bit, and then I see it come to life. But it wasn't. There's never really a eureka moment for me. I have this idea. I have all these facts. I'm gonna these facts and this information. I'm gonna make a decision based on those facts and information.
Okay, so then let me switch the question then. When you do have an idea for something and you decide that it's worthwhile to pursue, how do you go about pursuing that or breaking that down into manageable chunks? Like, what's your process for pursuing a new idea?
Yeah, I guess this is pretty creative in its essence. So I have an idea. It's in my head. I put it on paper, sketch it out, and that gives me like the interface, like the low fidelity interface of that.
So you're talking like for an app, right?
Say for an app. Okay. Yeah, an app or a website or something like that. So I just sketch it out on paper, and then I decide the functionality, and then after that I see, is there a need for this functionality in the market? Or was there a need for this functionality? Did someone already try this but they failed? Like, where can I learn from that? Because it's all the information we need is already out there. We just haven't learned it yet.
Interesting. And then do you kind of break it down into manageable goals and stuff moving forward if you decide to pursue it?
Yeah. So, I mean, after I kind of validate in that sense of, it's all natural, right? So like, the idea comes naturally, put it on paper, see the market. If that's okay, if there's something that could be done there, great. And then I manage the product in terms of like what we want to be built into tasks, into functionality tasks. and then assign it to someone on the team to do it.
Got it. Awesome, man. Well, we're kind of running short on time here. I want to get to my last two questions. Just some parting advice that you might have for any of our listeners who are thinking of dropping out, but they haven't quite made that step yet. What would be some advice you'd give them?
Wow, that's tough. I mean, so let's see. Can I switch the question up? I think
Sure.
How about advice to give myself? Advice to give myself would be, let's see. I think it was the CEO of IBM. He said this. He was like, in order to have like one success, you have to triple your failures, and that's exactly what I did. Like I made a ton of apps. 2/3 of them didn't do anything. The third that did did well in revenue and did well for my career and did well for my learning. And so having that minority of goodness in business or in life, and then takes a lot of the majority of failures to get to there. And so just start now, fail fast, like what we talked about earlier. And make sure you take control of your time too, because all we have is time. Like I've just recently started scheduling everything I do. I used to just have a to-do list, and like a lot of those tasks would lay dormant. But what I've found is if you just schedule the time for the task, then you're in a good spot. Like you don't have to. There's no guesswork of when you're going to do something anymore. So yeah, manage your time and start now. And just if you fail, just like keep iterating or keep launching until you get something right. Right?
Yeah.
Like there must be 1,000 songs that Michael Jackson sung before we heard a good one, or not 1,000, that'd be a lot, but yeah, it just translates to everything. If you're a writer, if you're a musician, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're an app developer, if you're anything, it just takes a lot of like production to get to the final masterpiece.
Love it, man. And how about some parting advice for any of our listeners who are more where you are now? They've dropped out and they're currently on their entrepreneurial journey.
Just think about your worst. I always thought about my worst case scenario. My worst case scenario is I go back to school. My worst case scenario now is like a job at like some tech company. And then that's a pretty good worst case scenario, right?
Yeah.
And so if in the sense that you can elevate your worst case scenario, great. And know that that's the worst it can get. Like you can't. If you have that in your back pocket, then you're pretty powerful going forward. Because I mean, if the best case fails, your worst case is still pretty good.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that it just takes away the fear that you have of feeling anything that you do, because you can just fall back on that awesome worst case. And for people who haven't even started too, your worst case at 18 is you move back with your parents. You see the people in your hometown that you hung out with in high school occasionally. Like that's your worst case. Like keep building, like from your basement, your computer or whatever it is. There's nothing terrible at 18 that the world can put on you because you have your parents. And I think that's the biggest undervalued thing that young people just overlook. And they have no real responsibility, right? It's like school isn't a real responsibility. They don't have to pay for anything. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess for people from like 18 to 22 who dropped out of school and like should be in college, your worst case is you go back. Your parents still love you. They let you sleep in the basement. There's no real external threats to you. And like for people like kind of like me from like 22 to 25, 26, like hone your skills to where you can get a job somewhere great, and like keep making things where you can show to people like this is what I can do. Because that means your worst case is a good job, and your best case is building the thing that you have in your head that you really want to work on. So it's really about mitigating that view of like where you are and like where you want to be.
Yeah, I love that, elevating your worst case scenario. It's not something that you always think about. You're always thinking about what's next and where am I headed. But if all that fails, if your best case scenario fails, focus on elevating your worst case scenario so it's not as bad as it might feel sometimes. I like that a lot. Awesome. Yeah. Well, what's the best way that people can connect with you?
Yeah, I'm on all the social medias. It's Chino Lex, at it's Chino Lex. And then, or if you just search Chino Lex, it'll come up. Or you can email me. It's chino@chinolex.com. That's pretty much it. Email or social.
Awesome, man. Well, Successful Dropouts, you've been hanging out with Chino and Kylan, learning what it takes to drop out, grind, and succeed. For everything we talked about today, head over to successfuldropout.com and type Chino into the search bar, and the show notes will pop right up. And as always, stay hungry, stay foolish.